Hello, and welcome to episode 174 of Prog Review. And if you can't read the description, he's doing War of the Worlds. Firstly, we have to say a big thank you to Mike, Mark Hardon, isn't it? Mark Harding. Yeah, I think that's about right. He donated the copy of this via the old wish list. Gratefully received, of course. Very, very, very good. Thank you, Mr. Harding. Mark Harding. Once again, Mark Harding. At least I haven't offended anyone this time around. And let's all give him a big virtual group hug as a thank you for making this episode possible. Yes, thank you. So, before we start, shall we have a little nosy at the packaging, shall we? Do you want to? Yeah. Well, I'll hand you over to my good friend Darren. Take it away, Darren.
Why, thank you, Darren. And here we have Jeff Wayne's musical version of War of the Worlds. It's the classic double album remastered and repackaged in stereo and 5.1 surround sound, featuring Richard Burton, Covington, Essex, Hayward, Linnett, Partridge and Thompson. And there's a little boat. There it is. And it's got this little booklet here. Again, I guess those of you who had the LP, which was quite nice. I wonder which one would win the battle, the Martian Tripod or Tarkus from ELP. Who do you think? It's Woking, Sonny Woking, and the Martian Tube. But yeah, I mean, is this like the album version, like miniaturized? Oh, bad things are happening. Look, they're getting vaporized. Oh my goodness. So yeah, I mean, you've got all the words. You can actually follow the narrator, and and there's the album sleeve, all very iconic stuff. So it's good to see everything down there. You can actually read along if you want. This is terrible. People are getting destroyed by the Martians. Look, and there's a priest with a glowing cross. So yeah, I mean, if you owned the album in the 70s, what do you think of this little miniaturized version? Is it any good? What do you reckon? Any much copy? Is it any good? No. That's no good. Look, there's a crow eating something red. He's got red on him. Oh, and there's a nice little essay on all the various, profile on all the various folks. There's Mr. Essex and Mr. Hayward and Linnett and Thompson. Yeah, they're all there. So you've got something to read as well. If you don't want to, if you want to find out more. And here's Mr. Wells himself, and there's a nice little back plate there of the artwork with Burton and Wells, and even more credits, and there's an even bigger version, the definitive version. So if you wasted your money on this, go out and buy that one, which has got even more discs and more versions. They make you feel like a fool, don't they? It makes you feel stupid. So yeah, this is the first SA CD. Like I said, it's stereo, and it's also 5.1, which is nice. And here is the second one with the crow. Oh dear. Anyway, so that's that. I better hand you back to that fat idiot.
Well, I think you'll agree that was informative as ever. So, where to start? At the beginning, of course. This album was big in the UK. Massive album. And I actually do remember it as a boy. Oh yeah, the album sleeve, the posters, the songs, the sights, the smells. But do you know what? I never owned a copy. A bit like Brothers in Arms. I've resisted. I'm going to buy it one day. So I was coming to the whole thing fresh, It was a bit exciting. Oh, wonder what it's going to be like. And what is there to say of this classic album? An album that is the 38th best-selling album of all time in the UK. Yeah. Well, first off, getting it out of the way, I judged this not to be a concept album. Yeah, because we're doing this thing about concept albums. I thought this was, somebody suggested this was a concept album, but I listened to it and I don't know, I'm not so sure, but I'll talk about that later. Want to keep me powder dry, Secondly, I was actually very surprised just how much of the record I knew without actually owning a copy. You know, both Eve of the War and Forever Autumn were somehow etched into my DNA through musical osmosis, and other parts of the album seemed very familiar too. But, you know, what if you don't know what this is all about? What if you're like me and you've never owned a copy or have no knowledge of this record? I think I might need to explain, give a little bit of backstory, yeah? Well, it starts with a guy called H.G. Wells, yeah? And I think he invented a time machine. And he tells a story of some little green men, some Martians, landing in Woking. Seriously, Woking. You know, not London. You know, not Downing Street. You know, Buckingham Palace, but Woking. They might as well made it Catford and be done with it. You know, or Slough or Staines, but Woking. Lots of bad things happen. Tom Cruise spends a lot of his time running around and looking small. There is a big red beam that evaporates some people. There's a sea battle and some red weed. Not that kind of weed. No. And then the Martians all get the sniffles and die. That's it. Okay, it's not Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code, but over the years it has captured the imagination of many because it's one of the first invasion stories, you know, sci-fi stories of its time. And, you know, we've all got, joking apart, we've all got to, you know, tip our hat to Mr. Wells. He's a very clever man. And then Bruce Wayne's artistic brother Jeff comes along in the 70s, you know, with his bell bottoms on, and decides to make a musical adaptation of the story. And he uses the various talents of the day. You know, David Essex, you know, who doesn't love David Essex? You know, it's hard not to have a man crush on, you know, David Essex, Stardust, the peak of his career. You know, lovely fella. Though he looks more like Peter Gabriel these days. You never see Peter Gabriel and David Essex in the room together. You got Justin Hayward. Did you know his father actually made his name in the pickle industry? There's a dead junkie called Phil Lynott and Julie Covington. Yeah. These people appear as various characters in the story, and there's a fair bit of acting and chewing up the scenery, especially in the case of Mr. Lynott, who sounds like the drugs were indeed working that particular day in the studio. But what I found really fascinating was the session musicians who actually play on the record. You've got guitars from the great Chris Spedding, who's played with everyone from Harry Nilsson to Brian Eno to Roxy Music to Paul McCartney, produced the demos for the Pistols, you know. Then there's Herbie Flowers. Herbie, love that name, great name that. Who's bass? He's on the bass playing. He's best noted for the bass on David Bass Bass Oddity and that rubbery, you know, elastic bass line for Walk on the Wild Side by Lou Reed. Though there is one blot on his copybook in the form of the novelty hit Grandad, which was sung by actor Clive Dunn. Do you remember that? It's great. All the Americans are going, what's he talking about? What's he talking about now? There's a battery lights flashing. I was in full flow then. I'm going to carry on, and then I'm going to stop at the next breather. So you got Herbie Flowers. There's also the one that really stood out was George Fenton. You're going, who? George Fenton. You know Georgie Fenton. Now he's one of the greatest composers of our generation. You're going, what? He writes TV themes, and for me, he did the theme. You know, the thing that got me excited was he wrote the theme to Bergerac. You know, the one that's Walking on the Moon by the Police with a Gallic twist. You know, dum dum dum. Yeah, you know no, this is very hard. The Americans are switching off. It's only the Brits who are with me at the moment. And with that, I'm gonna do some of my magic and change the battery. I wish the battery light would flash before I started pressing record. This stupid Canon. Don't buy Canon cameras. Did you notice the join? Did you? Oh dear. Don't get this with other YouTubers, do you? Such unprofessionalism. I'm going to have a little sip of water. It's not gin, trust me. So yeah, it was really interesting to read the liner notes, as I said, and hear the album. And like many of the records in this series on concept albums, it's very much a product of its time, and it's lots of fizzing disco drums on this, which is, it's okay, but with the surround sound mix, they lose some of their impact, and it sounds as if the actual drummer was using his mother's wooden spoons, beating the life out of 2 biscuit tins. That's what it sounded like. But apart from that, there's lots of, as you'd expect, lots of Martian lasers and oola, 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 oola. That bit, love it. It's not the producers. It's not the Swedish lady from the producers. It's the call of the Martians. Oola, 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 oola. Yeah. So why does this fail to be a concept album? Well, it's got a narrator, you see. In Richard Burton, Under Milk Wood, Starless and Bible Black, No, okay. And he speaks an awful lot of the time, doing his narrating. Well, he would be, because he's called the narrator, and that's what he does. Stating the bleeding obvious now, aren't you? And he fills in all the blanks, so you end up with an album that's more like an audio book with some lively incidental music. And if this was a true concept album, there'd be no narrator, and the poor listener would have to work out the story by looking at the album artwork and the sleeve and piecing a narrative together from the lyrics, like you do on Tommy, or the Lamb, or whatever. So for me, it was more like a film soundtrack than a concept album. But, or a radio play, it's more along those lines. But of course, feel free to argue in the comment box below. Knock yourself out, I don't care. Go on, dare you to. So yeah, the first disc, it's a double disc, double header. First disc, it's fairly good. It's a good romp. It's got all the hits on. Eve of the War. Dun, 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 dun. See, I do that now. I go dun, 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 and my boy goes dun, dun, dun. He loved it. Loved it. And Forever Autumn with Justin Hayward. Yeah, I wrote a song called that. Nothing to do with this though. But then by the second disc, the Martians seem to have lost interest in trying to take over Woking. And if they're not going to take their invasion seriously, then why should I carry on listening to the record? The music though is it's a mix of disco, soft rock, and synth-driven pop. A lot of synthesizers on this, and it's quite fun when you get the recurring themes, popping back in the songs, and the constant reuse of the themes again at distance. It's from it being like a true concept album. It's more. Well, it puts it squarely between the rock opera and a movie soundtrack, and it is very cinematic in its production. So is it progressive rock? We asked that question. Ooh, it's got the arrogant swagger of prog. It really has, It's got the swagger, but the use of orchestral flourishes, the overuse of the leitmotifs that run through it, and the disco beat probably puts it more in the symphonic rock. Whoa, symphonic rock category. Oh, you are spoiling us, Mr. Locke. But I could see this, this album being this. I could see this record. This here record. I could see it being used as a gateway album to lure the naive, and get them hooked on prog. You lure them in with War of the Worlds, and then get them strung out on Topographic Oceans. Yeah. I'm your dealer, man. No, that first hit was for free. Now you've got to start paying. And this is a double album. Yeah. So, as a rating, I'm going to give this 3 Martian death rays out of 5. Yes, that's 3 Martian death rays out of 5, purely because it does sag on the second disc. After the Martians stop destroying each other and go to bed with a man-sized Martian cold. But the good news, and there's always good news, is at least it isn't War of the Worlds The New Generation, which Jeff Wayne released, was it last year, 2012 or something, and features the dubious talents of Liam Neeson. I love it when he punches out wolves. I'm going to punch that wolf. Gary Barlow. Joss Stone. So, that's something in its favour. It's not that album. So yeah, once again, thank you to Mr. Mike Harding for providing us with this record. Again, if you have any suggestions, please let me know. I'll put it on the wish list, and maybe one of you nice people can help me out, and we'll all have fun watching me make a prat of myself. I don't know what the next concept album is going to be because I haven't thought that far ahead. I've got a list, but I'm not sure. Maybe we'll move to the, I don't know. We could go to the 90s. What do you reckon? We'll go to the 90s, or we could go to 2000, 2005 perhaps. Or, I don't know. I'll figure something out. I've got a few ideas. Hey, it'll be a nice surprise for you. And with that, my name has been Darren Locke. I've been burbling on, as per usual, about Jeff Wayne's, let's get it right, Jeff Wayne's musical version of The War of the Worlds. I'm sure they changed the title. I'm sure it used to be just called The War of the Worlds. And they had to put musical version in. Was it copyright infringement? I don't know. But yeah, I've been talking about this. And it's good, jolly good fun. You know, check it out. I like the surround sound. It's good job. It's good to hear Richard Burton doing his thing. And that's it. Only one more thing to say to you. And that is, prog on.